to the notes section of your breakout room. I'm going to I've got a problem here. I don't have the notes section here. I'm going to put the instructions right here. So everybody should have it in your breakout room. And I'll see you in about 10 minutes.
technology
Yes,
project. Oh,
It helps you
Hey
set
guys,
up boundaries for the AMS.
welcome back. I'm gonna mute everybody's microphone and turn mine back on. Let's see. Understand that. I jumped into everybody's breakout room briefly just to see what was going on, and I realized that for some reason the breakout room layouts didn't carry over in the template, so I'll have to fix that when we get to a break at the top of the hour. Understanding FAA procurement roles and responsibilities, good. Refresh AMS policy. Okay, so people are working with procurement and just need to refresh it. Learn the differences between how FAA does things, how other people do things. You'll find FAA is very privileged. They have a lot of leeway from the federal government in the way they do procurement, and just generally the way the organization is managed. It's a very favored organization. Learn from colleagues. That's always my goal. I always learn a lot from you guys. Core 3 certification. So this is a requirement for Core 3 certification, I guess. Contract management refresher course. Okay, good. So we'll be touching on all of that. That sounds great. So this is where we get to find out what you know. FAA uses training best practices. Take a snapshot of what you know before the class and take another snapshot of what you know after the class. With a pre and post assessment, it doesn't count toward any kind of a grade or any kind of pass in the class. It's really sort of a reflection on me as your instructor, how good am I at conveying this information to you. So I'm going to take you to a screen and put you into a pre-assessment. You'll have 20 minutes to take the pre-assessment, and right afterwards we'll take a break. So I'm going to take you to another screen. An assessment screen. Marcy's going to drop the link into InFrame Connect, so you should be able to take your pre-assessment test right here on the screen. However, sometimes people have connectivity issues. For some reason, it doesn't pop up. So Marcy is also going to put the connection to the pre-assessment in the main chat. There's a link there in case it didn't work. As I can see it, for some reason, it didn't work on my computer. So the link breaks sometimes, so you'll be able to follow the link. It is about 25 till, so you've got 20 minutes to take the assessment. And we'll take a break then immediately following at 5 minutes to 10. And let's come back in this class at 5 minutes after 10 o'clock Eastern.
Wait. Sorry, may I say something?
Yes.
Do you mind if we can take the break at 10, actually, instead of 5 to 10? I'm not sure if everybody agrees.
I don't mind. If you prefer it straight up at 10 o'clock, we can come back and talk about the assessment after 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So change your plans. We're still going to take the assessment for 20 minutes, but we won't take a break until straight up 10 o'clock. If we're good to go on the assessment, give me a green thumbs up. If you've got a question, go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask it now. And thank you, by the way. I don't know who asked that question about the 10 o'clock break, but I appreciate your asking for that adjustment.
I'm not able to get, this is Bill Zager, I'm not able to get into the link. I'm using on my home computer here.
Okay.
And it sends me to a Microsoft screen to log into. I'm not connected.
You need to be connected to, how does that work, Marcy? You need to be connected to the FAA computer because it uses your FAA email ID in the Microsoft Forms.
Okay, so I'll have to log back out and log back in with the government computer, correct?
That's correct. Unless, Marcy, can they somehow use their government credentials to log into MS Forms? Do you know?
Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that right now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem.
Sorry, are we doing now the self-assessment?
Yes, Yvonne. Is this Yvonne?
No, this is yours. I just can't see it yet.
Okay. Yeah, we should do the self-assessment. If you don't see it on your screen,
No,
if it doesn't pop up, Marcy put a link in chat in the chat room. We'll have to follow the link on the chat
I don't see the link.
to get to the self.
Okay, that's the link. Okay,
Okay, yeah. It's just 12 quick questions.
okay. Hold on.
Yvonne, you got your hand up. Did you have a question?
No, I haven't touched anything.
Okay, that's fine.
that letter from that lawyer? Everything that they sent us, give it to me.
Mute your mic.
It had plastic on it, Jim.
Oh, I know. It's in here. I took it with me. Five more minutes. 1 minute. I hear you. Okay. We can do that at the start of another break. Okay, let's go back to presentation screen. I'll turn myself back on. Welcome back. Anybody have any other than connectivity? Anybody have any issues with the pre-assessment?
No, it was good, but I just can't wait to see the answers. But I'm glad I'm going to learn all of that at the end. In case I don't know, very good questions. Made me think for a minute.
Okay.
It's Dirce, by the way. So thank you.
Who is this? I'm sorry.
Dirce Taylor.
Okay. I wanted to see if anybody noticed we provided the wrong link for the pre-assessment. It turns out that was the pre-assessment link for a course in AMS Life Cycle. So we won't actually be touching on all those topics. At some point, maybe before we take another break, we're going to steer you back towards the correct pre-assessment, which is instead of 15 questions, only 12 questions, and it deals specifically with procurement. But we'll have to get to that a little bit later. So my bad. We've got 3 minutes before our next break, so I'll just introduce the next topic. The first module that we're dealing with is an overview of AMS procurement policy. There are 4 modules in this class. This module provides an understanding of procurement lifecycle system policy. So we are going to touch on AMS lifecycle a little bit, but that's really not the focus of this class like it was on the assessment. It's also going to explain how it aligns with the AMS lifecycle. So the objectives of this first lesson, after this first lesson, you'll be able to summarize the history of the FAA agency and its acquisition independence. You'll be able to discuss AMS procurement principles and rules, guidelines, identify the main elements of the procurement policy, and describe the phases of the procurement life cycle. There are 3 major phases that we're going to talk about. And finally, we'll discuss FAA procurement roles and responsibilities. We've got 1 minute left. So before we get into the acquisition, stopping at the objectives is probably a good place to hit the brakes. We've got 45 seconds before we take our first 10-minute break. Any thoughts, questions? Anybody wants to bring up before I send you off? I'll be fixing the breakout room layouts while you take a break. It's 10 o'clock Eastern. Let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll meet back here at 10 after 10 Eastern. So go grab yourself a fresh cup of coffee, and I'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
With what
Okay, welcome back. Hope everybody got a fresh cup of coffee. And we're ready to roll on procurement information. If everybody's back and good to go, could you give me a green thumbs up? Okay, we're good to go. During the break, I tried to repair some of the layouts on the breakout rooms. Breakout groups 1 and 2, you're fine. I will still pop in next time we break out and finish correcting the layouts for breakout rooms 3 and 4. But in the meantime, let's talk about acquisitions in the FAA. Acquisition, the term, means acquiring by contract of supplies or services using appropriated funds for use by the FAA, and that's either a purchase or lease. And so whether the supplies can be just purchased or have to be created, developed, demonstrated, evaluated, it still has to comply with AMS policy. This is critical for the FAA. Why is it critical? Anybody think, why is it critical that AMS procurement policy be followed when the FAA acquires any material or products or services? Any thoughts? Okay. James said acquisition law. Very definitely need to follow acquisition law. And part of acquisition law is a requirement that the federal agency have a good system and policy for managing and controlling and reporting and documenting the use of those funds. First, follow the rules and regulations and make sure it includes small businesses. A big part, again, it's federal law, the inclusion of small businesses, and give small businesses an opportunity to participate. So it's all right. Accountability, says William, right on. Monitoring, yeah, so we can see what we're doing. It's all right on. And bottom line, FAA is a huge organization. We're talking about a lot of money. And if we didn't have some kind of accountability in a system and we could show accountability and use of appropriated funds, it would be a disaster. A typical fiscal year at the FAA is over 25,000 awards, $4 billion worth of spending. 30%, by the way, goes to small businesses. About 80% of the procurement dollars are awarded on a competitive basis, and about 70% of the actual procurement actions go through some form of competition. 95% of the goods that the FAA acquires are manufactured in the U.S. So there's a very wide range of size and complexity of procurements as part of the FAA's maintenance and of the national airspace. So you've already had a pre-assessment on the life cycle, but the procurement process fits into the FAA life cycle management process. Life cycle goes through 3 major phases. There's a pre-award acquisition planning phase. There's the contract formation, the award phase, and the post-award, which is the performance and administration phase. The objectives of AMS process and policy are to first establish performance goals and plans for the FAA, define, big part of the acquisition cycle is define the future state for things like the FAA enterprise architecture. Once you define a future state, and you can contrast that with the current state, and you can develop an implementation plan that'll take us from the current state to the future state, all part of good project management. Also to obtain and sustain throughout their service life all the systems, equipment, service facilities, infrastructure that are needed to achieve the FAA's plans and goals. And finally, the whole life cycle incorporates the decommissioning or removing of any unneeded assets from the FAA's portfolio. I've got another breakout room exercise, and you're going to notice while you're in this breakout room this time, I'll be popping in and out to fix the breakout room layout, at least in rooms 3 and 4. But this exercise is described on page 7 of your student manual. You'll be placed in your breakout rooms for 15 minutes. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to imagine that you're responsible for developing a procurement policy. It's for a new government organization. You're the head of a brand new procurement for a brand new federal agency. And this agency is responsible for purchase of food for a government-funded hospital. I want you to work on your groups first to identify what the goals are. The goal or goals are going to be. And then identify a set of fundamental principles that you want to have as part of your procurement system in order to achieve those goals. When you get into your breakout rooms, I want you to write the answers in the notes section of your breakout rooms. Use the chat, the breakout room chat, to talk among your members, or just unmute your microphones and speak. And identify a spokesperson to share your answers with the group before you come back into the main group. Now, I'll give you an example. There's an example in your student guide, and I think there's actually an example as part of the instructions for the breakout group. Let's say that the goal is to have a green, in other words, an environmentally friendly food service. So the policies that you might implement would be: we only purchase Energy Star rated items when acquiring equipment. We use eco takeout food containers so they can be reused. We produce locally, use local options, create farm to table processes. And we have a building rooftop garden to provide supplemental produce. Those might be examples of things that you would use if green was really the goal. So let me take this directions. I'm going to drop them into the breakout instructions so you will be able to see them in your individual breakout rooms. Are there any questions before I send you to your breakout rooms? Again, this is a 15-minute exercise, and I'll set a breakout room timer for 15 minutes. It looks like you're good. I'm going to start breakout room timer now and send you to your breakout rooms. I'll see you in 15 minutes.
Hello? Okay. Thank you.
you would purchase.
I'll send you a note ahead of time, let you know that it'll close in 30 or 60 seconds. I'm going to mute everybody's microphone. And turn my microphone back on. Let's talk about a little bit about the link between goals and policy. I see a lot of people had sometimes a variety of goals. Group 2, wide variety of foods, reduce food and package waste. Okay, so a lot of goals and principles to support those goals. Food safety, local food vendors. Okay, provide a wide variety of options. Process, identify how many people will be serving. Okay, so the issues you're going to look at, the things you're going to think about. Breakout room 3, only serve organic food and drink. All right. Breakout room 4, local food options for a government hospital. Sustainable policy, food meets federal state regulations, eco-friendly packaging, and so on and so forth. Okay. Tell me this, was it pretty easy once you had a goal to identify policies to support that goal? What did you think?
Well, I was under the assumption that we're going to be looking at what's currently exists in policy and kind of pivot from there. Since we're not going to be creating actual policy, that's another situation in itself. And take a look at what's already allowed in policy as far as, energy efficiency or green initiatives, and then use that to form this, because we're actually not getting into a situation where we're going to go out and start procuring, see what kind of local areas or could produce organic food for us, right? So I just know for our team, and I'm not speaking for everybody, that we're just going to pivot off the existing policy.
Okay, so you off the existing AMS policy.
Correct.
Okay, which makes sense. I mean, this is a class in AMS. I guess you would expect to pivot off existing AMS policy. We're going to talk a little bit just in the next couple of slides on policy and goals. But the idea being is once the goal is clear, the point of this exercise was once the goal is clear, it's pretty easy to see how policy lines up to support those goals. And you interpreted the exercise a little bit differently, which is fine. It worked out great. But I wanted to draw that link between the goal of your procurement system and the policies to support that goal. Let's roll on. A quick mention of time right now. Because we gave you the wrong assessment last time, we're gonna give it another shot. I appreciate another chance at it, but we're gonna give you the right assessment this time. I'm gonna talk for about 7 or 8 minutes, and I'll give you 15 minutes to do the 12 questions on the correct assessment. And then we're gonna take our next break at 11 o'clock. Any questions before we get going on this? Any questions before we get started again?
No, we're good.
Okay, very good. So the goal of the AMS policy is very simply stated: obtain high quality products, services, or real estate in a timely, cost-effective manner at prices that are fair and reasonable. The goal is very, very straightforward. So there's a set of fundamental principles that support that goal. And just like the exercise in your classroom, once the goal is clear, you can see how the fundamental principles align in support of that goal. So the first is to enable a selection of best value contractors. Best value is a procurement philosophy. If you ever worked in, especially in construction, when I ran construction for the state of Tennessee, and we were required by law to take the lowest price, which opened up a whole bag of worms. After I left the state of Tennessee, I was told by somebody there that they shifted to a best value philosophy, and it made it much easier. They could, because they realized, lowest prices. A lot of times, you're going to deal with the most difficult contractors when you're dealing with lowest price. But FAA recognizes the need to give the procurement professionals a little bit of flexibility to pursue best value. Focuses on the key discriminators, so you can distinguish between the best contractors or suppliers versus others. Promote discretion and sound business judgment and flexibility, and push that flexibility and that judgment down to the lowest levels of the organization. Encourage procurement of commercial items wherever possible. In other words, non-developmental items, so you don't have to be reinventing the wheel when a commercial product is available. Provide streamlined methods to initiate innovative processes. Promote open communication. A lot of times that innovation, the way to change things or a better way to do things, comes from the vendors. So promote open communication, access to information, so everybody, number one, can coordinate better, but number two, that you're with open coordination, open to suggestions and good ideas. Encourage competition as a preferred method of contracting. Permit single source when required or when necessary, based upon the situation. Sometimes in emergencies, you don't want to go through a competition. You need to contract very, very quickly to fulfill the FAA mission. Allow the use of a range of contract types. Again, that gives us, the FAA, flexibility to tailor our contracts for the needs of a given procurement. Authorize purchase cards consistent with sound, prudent business practice. Create opportunities for small businesses and socially or economically disadvantaged business owners. Provide internal processes to resolve conflicts or bid protests. Promote high standards of ethics is a principle. Require file documentation to support all the business decisions. Ensure that there's adequate checks and balances in our procurement system. And finally, do this all in such a way that ensures and encourages the public trust. Now, the FAA is subject to the Procurement Integrity Act. The Procurement Integrity Act, a federal act that prohibits the release of source selection information to bidders. Gives somebody an advantage. You're supposed to keep the information submitted from one bidder secret from other bidders. It also restricts former procurement employees from the FAA for turning around and receiving compensation from some of these vendors, either as an employee or a consultant. But the FAA has a little bit of freedom. There's a section on definitions and the limitations on protests that doesn't apply to the FAA. Congress has directed the FAA to adopt its own set of definitions and a protest policy or protest methods consistent with the intent of the AMS of the acquisition management system. So our procurement system emphasizes, like I said, open communication, common sense decision-making, flexibility in the approach for a given procurement situation, sound business judgment, and a team approach for managing procurement. Some of the benefits: it enables us to be innovative, use a little bit of creativity to find what's best, what kind of approach produces the best advantage for the FAA, and ensures that the right vendor is selected, not just the lowest price, but what is the best benefit, the best value to the FAA. And all this is integrated into the whole AMS lifecycle management process. So just like your class activity of identifying a goal and the principles to support that goal in food service, the fundamental principles of the AMS procurement system are designed to support the goal. What is the goal? Again, high quality products, services, or real property, a timely, cost-effective manner at prices that are fair and reasonable. That is the goal stated in a single sentence. So why does the FAA have AMS while other agencies have FARs? FAA is a little different. There aren't very many government agencies that really operate on a 24/7 basis, and that 24/7 basis is tied very closely to public safety. So the AMS gives us the flexibility afforded to be able to respond quickly, develop management systems and processes to implement our acquisition in a way that's effective to support our mission. So our flexibility incorporates best practices from industry and other agencies to develop policies to enable procurement in a timely and cost-effective manner. Whereas other agencies, a lot of times, they're a little bit hand-strapped because they have to adhere to FARs. Now, it is a quarter till. So we're going to shift gears. I'm going to take you back to an assessment page. And this time we're going to give you the right assessment. You'll have 15 minutes to take the assessment until straight up 11 o'clock Eastern. At 11 o'clock Eastern, we'll start a break, and that break is going to run for 10 minutes. So I'll see you at 10 minutes after 11. If the link does not pop up like it is here, Marcy's going to drop the link into the main chat. And just like last time, you can follow it in the main chat. And again, you'll find you'll need to be logged on to your FAA computer to follow. Okay. Okay, I'm going to put a new in-frame connect pod in there. And as soon as that pops up, you'll be able to put the link. So I'm going to shut my video off, but I'll hang around in case you have any questions. And we'll be back here at 10 minutes after 11, after a 10-minute break. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully getting the right pre-assessment made a little bit of a difference. I'm going to continue with the overview, and then we'll roll right into Module 2, which is the pre-award phase. Before we get going, are there any questions or thoughts? If we're ready to get started on the next slide, could you give me a green thumbs up? Make sure everybody made it back okay. Okay, looks like we're good to go. This next section, we'll be talking for about 15 minutes, and that'll take us up to lunch time. So the policies in the procurement system apply to all FAA procurements except assistance programs. That's things like grants or cooperative agreements. The procurement policy, if you look at the document itself, it's relatively short. It's only about 80 pages. It's organized into 14 sections. The sections do not follow the AMS lifecycle process. They're just capturing information in 14 different buckets. Now, this course is organized to align with the lifecycle. As a result, it's going to jump around a little bit, the AMS sections, but you'll be able to follow along easily with the student manual. The procurement lifecycle goes through 3 phases. Phase 1 is acquisition planning. Acquisition begins, of course, with always, if it's done well, with extensive planning. Needs are established, requirements are described and documented. The source selection and solicitation terms and conditions are determined during this phase. Phase 2 is contract formation, where the actual contract is written. The screening information request is completed. Offers are solicited. Sources are selected. And the last step in this phase 2 is, of course, the award of the contract itself, which leads you to phase 3, which is performance and administration phase, where the work on the contract begins and performance is, of course, monitored. Design and production quality is assessed and monitored during the process. Payments and accounting takes place, and eventually the contract is closed out and terminated. Now, there's a lot of different people and organizations involved with each acquisition. It's very much a team effort. Let's take a look at some of these organizations. The FAA acquisition executive manages the whole enchilada, manages all of AMS policy. There are 2 chief of contracting officers, or COCOs, within the FAA, one for headquarters, one for the aeronautical centers. It's delegated by the acquisition executive and given unlimited authority for procurement. They manage the day-to-day contracting functions under the FAA. A contracting officer is warranted by the acquisition executive to issue legal contracts. All programmatic, technical, and other contractual requirements established by the project manager are issued only by the contracting officer. Contracting officer often has a contracting officer representative, or core. They're involved in developing the procurement request. They prepare a core work plan, maintain the record-keeping files, monitor contractor actions as authorized by the contract officer. Source selection official, or SSO, assures the competence of the source evaluation team. It assigns responsibility to source evaluation team members during a source selection process, approves the evaluation plan, and makes down select decisions when they shortlist vendors. The evaluation team, the source evaluation team, drafts all the screening information requests, formulates a source evaluation plan. They review and evaluate submitted screening documents. They prepare and document their decisions with a source evaluation report. They oversee all the procedural and administrative aspects of a procurement, and they conduct the debriefing with vendors. And they possibly prepare a lessons learned memorandum at the completion of a procurement effort. Small Business Development Office is often involved with the procurement. FAA has its own Small Business Development Office to try to encourage small business and disadvantaged business involvement. A product or service team develops and procures and delivers product or services for users within the FAA or customers. They manage the acquisition program baseline or investment programs. They assist in developing the program requirements. A lot of times they're the group that identifies the need for procurement. They develop cost and schedule baselines during the final investment analysis. A product or service team leader serves as a spokesperson for the product or service team. The Office of Chief Counsel represents the FAA's legal interests. They are meant to be an independent professional judgment in advising department, but they also represent the FAA if things ever get to litigation or alternative dispute resolution. The ODRA is the Office of Dispute Resolution for Acquisitions. It's an impartial administrative forum. They adjudicate bid protests and contract disputes. Every contract with a vendor with the FAA has a clause in there that requires working through ODRA for alternative dispute resolution. Chief Financial Officer jointly approves the acquisition program or baseline. He's a core member of the Joint Resources Council. That's the group that makes the big decisions for investments. Chief Information Officer is a member of the Joint Resources Council. They chair something called the Shared Services Information Technology Committee. And they're involved with any kind of acquisition that involves information technology. And finally, the Acquisition Executive Board supports the Acquisition Executive and the Joint Resources Council by reviewing, authorizing, and overseeing acquisition management policy, processes, practices, procedures, and tools. So this concludes the overview. We're going to keep moving and roll right into Module 2, which deals with the first phase, AMS acquisition planning. So a procurement request package requires a plan if the estimated value exceeds $25,000 or more. So planning is a big part of the procurement process. Now, the objectives of this module are first, put you in a position to be able to discuss critical elements of the acquisition planning phase, understand policy and tools as it applies to planning, describe the components of the procurement request, describe the policies and activities associated with determining the extent of the competition, understand the key aspects of planning source selection, and explain how to plan solicitation terms and conditions. So acquisition planning, the needs are established, requirements are described, and source selection terms and conditions are determined for the acquisition. We said acquisition means acquiring by contract supplies or services with appropriated funds for use by the FAA. It can be a purchase or a lease. The acquisition planning phase, efforts of all the FAA personnel are coordinated and integrated through a comprehensive plan for fulfilling agency needs in a timely manner at a reasonable cost. So it supports the goal of the acquisition management procurement system. The benefits of effective acquisition planning include maximizing competition, ensuring commercial items are acquired when practical, and integrating the efforts of all personnel responsible for the acquisition. It also ensures that the needs are met in the most effective, economical, and timely manner. So the acquisition plan includes information related to the dollar value, the size, the complexity, scope, nature, and generally the circumstances of the acquisition. So why in general, why do you think planning is important in doing an acquisition? Have you ever been involved in the acquisition of something where you didn't spend time planning?
Hi. Yes, I started being a part of a team. We're planning an acquisition, and I would say, unfortunately, I kind of inherited that in the pretty much when we were just about to start, putting solicitations out, and I realized the requirements really needed to be redefined. And it was just, I said, I think the planning was not really planned. They were just kind of assuming everything was the same requirements from a prior, contract. And they're just kind of like repeating everything. And I was just like, that all that you ask a vendor to do here is going to be priced. And don't you realize you don't need this any longer in your plan? In 3 years, you're not going to need any of this. And it was just really painful for me to go through that. But it was a good, lesson learned because we stopped. I was able to stop a little bit and say, let's just put the brakes, right? So we can really move forward appropriately. And I don't really think the people that were in charge, the PMO, to read the requirements and validate it, they really did their job. They just assumed everything was just, we're just having the current vendor doing, so shouldn't be so much of a difference. But it really was a big impact to stop for a minute. So
that's a great story. Darcy, I find a lot of times planning is probably one of the most important, if not the most important step in conducting a procurement. But a lot of times it's done just sort of a cursory effort, not really spending a lot of time focusing on it. And part of that reason I've come to understand is because it doesn't feel like real work. We're not actually procuring stuff. We're just planning to be active in it. And so a lot of times that stuff doesn't get the kind of attention that it really needs. That's an interesting story. Why do you think the FAA wants to maximize competition whenever possible, or plan in a manner that maximizes competition? Drive down costs. Yeah, Martina, that's exactly right. Get the best value, get the lowest price, most competitive price. Certainly keeps vendors on their toes when they know they're working against someone else. Government contracting is famous for high prices, and so we could always use as much competition as we can. Why do you think the FAA, part of their standard policy, is to pursue commercial items and avoid development whenever possible? Easier to maintain, yeah. Less expensive, doubly good, yeah. Spare parts are usually more available on something that's commercial. Easy to attain, ready off the shelf. A lot of times you get it faster too. Better technology, again, Eric mentioned better technology is usually more mature, obviously, if you're not developing it from scratch. David, great point, avoids cost overruns and delays. Especially larger procurements, it's very difficult if you're not getting commercial items to keep a vendor on track and not causing overruns and delays. I once had a project manager on the vendor side tell me, the goal is just to get the contract. Okay, so we can always come up with claims to get more money and time if we need it. So using commercial items avoids that whole thing. What's the difference? I use two words. I use coordinate, but I also use integrate. What's the difference between integration and coordination when you're talking about all the teams or all the different parties that are involved in a procurement effort? Anybody, come off mute for a second. Anybody have a an opinion what the difference is between integration versus coordination?
This is Eric Chuba. I think coordination is more for gathering input, getting the opinions of your various SMEs that are taking part in the process, whereas the integration is bringing those people to boots on the ground to actually work the effort.
Yeah, actually doing work together is a big difference. You can coordinate, just make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all know what everybody is doing. But when you integrate, the whole idea is you're supposed to work as one. We're supposed to work across organizations as one team. So it requires a higher level coordination, makes planning all that much more important. How are we really going to work together so that we come across to the industry, to the vendors, as a single entity, as a single body? Coordination is more roles, and integration is work with groups in one component. Maria, it's perfect. So a big part of the focus on planning is how do we go about making sure that there's an integrated effort for everybody. So service organizations, they're expected to use procurement planning as an opportunity to evaluate and review the entire procurement process. Part of the procurement planning, like Darcy said, is an opportunity to say, are we really getting the right things if we follow this process? It challenges you to look at what you're going to be doing in the action phase to make sure that you're pointed in the right direction. Also, so that sound judgments, good decision-making will facilitate success of the overall program. So here's a question open for discussion. What's the difference between acquisition planning and procurement planning? Any thoughts on that one?
Well, in my head, I think acquisition is, planning to come up with a strategy, what we are going to acquire before making the decision and making sure that this is, the strategy, this is the right, it could be a small business and large open competition. We have done our market analysis. And after that, then the decision is made and we start with the procurement, how we are going to acquire what we have decided. So that's how I have it in my head.
That's a good, I didn't think of it that way, but that's a good way to put it. Acquisition is the big picture whole program. It tends to be more strategic in nature, whereas the procurement planning is more tactical. So it's more focused. I think that's an excellent way to put it. Let's see, different parts. Jake said different parts of the acquisition process is how I'm thinking about it. Okay, that makes acquisition is the overall strategy. I think you guys are all right. So a single acquisition plan could be bigger overall strategy. And on the tactical level, you can have multiple procurements that involve planning and execution of a procurement within a single large acquisition. Okay, so acquisition is planning what to buy. Procurement is already know what to buy. Eric, that's another terrific differentiation. Good. Procurement is a process of doing the acquisition plan or executing. Okay, good. Good. Good answers, good discussion. So procurement planning guidance and principles. Development, we said, should be avoided if at all possible. It always costs more, potential for overruns and delays, difficulty on maintenance and spare parts if you develop something from scratch, if it's a product. Scope of procurement should be considered in terms of complexity, the period of performance, the dollar value, the risk. Think about the trade-offs associated. What are the things that are under programmatic control? There's four major items in a high level, generic, under your control. The cost, the schedule, the scope, and the quality are all things that you can determine in your procurement planning and write into any kind of a source selection process. And that each one of those, there's a trade-off. Is there a trade-off between cost and schedule? Yeah, of course. You can always add more money to accelerate the schedule. Cost and scope, add more money to accelerate scope, or reduce the scope to lower the money. Same thing with quality. Those four items, if you look at the interdependencies, represent 6 trade-offs that should be considered. And if you do a good job, you'll step back and consider individually each one of those 6. What are the impact of cost on schedule, on scope, on quality? What's the impact of schedule on scope and quality? What's the impact on scope on quality? It becomes 6 individual trade-offs to be considered when you're planning your procurement. So budget allocation release means releasing contract-related budget information to industry. So we know how much money we have to spend and where we're going. For complex systems or hardware acquisition, it should be coordinated with quality assurance. This kind of release should be considered for competitive or multi-year funding or development. It gives the agency, or excuse me, the vendors sort of a heads up on where we're going and helps them prepare to support the procurement efforts. Some of the methods of maintaining competition: multiple sourcing, obtaining reprocurement data or data rights. Open systems design is sometimes a way of encouraging competition. We need to determine whether the procurement should be competitive or single source. Again, it depends on the individual circumstances for the procurement. Consider pre-release of documents, sometimes early release of program documents, draft specifications, draft functional requirements, draft screening information requests, can help get feedback from the industry to get us, if there's any need for correction before we go to a formal screening information request. All procurements that are anticipated to exceed $100,000 have to be publicly announced, either through the internet or some other means. And the Office of Management and Budget has produced a guidance document for performance and commercial activities. It's called Circular A76. Anybody familiar with Circular A76? It establishes federal policy for competition of commercial activities, and basically says it's not anything that's not inherently governmental. There's some things that have to be performed by the government. Something that's not inherently governmental in nature should be subject to competition, should be considered for outsourcing. So I've got another breakout session that's coming up. I'm going to put you in your breakout groups for 30 minutes. After we do this, we'll take a lunch break. This is on page 26 of your student guide. First, you've got a little bit of reading to do, starting on page 26. I'm going to take the first 5 minutes and read through. It's called the swim case. It's a fictitious case about a system procurement. Then with your group, I want you to identify the procurement planning guidance or principles that we talked about that are most pertinent to the swim contract. If you look back in your student guide, you can see those individual principles and find the ones that are most pertinent, that most apply to the swim contract. Explain your rationale for that selection, and write the answers in the notes section of your breakout room. Now, when you get into your breakout room, the first thing to do is to clear the notes. Select all the notes that are currently in the breakout room notes area and delete them. Clear it so you can do this exercise. And after your group is finished with this exercise, here's something I want you to do, because we're going to continue to use this swim scenario later in the course. I want you to capture and maintain that. So everybody in your group, open up a Word document somewhere on your computer, copy everything that's out of the notes section in your breakout group, and paste it into the Word document after your group has completed the exercise. That way it'll be there permanently. Every time we go to breakout group, you'll be able to individually refer back to a Word document on your computer. Any questions before I move you to a breakout group? I'm going to put the instructions into the breakout room instruction area. Like I said, this is on page 26 of your student guide. I'm going to put you into it for 30 minutes. After this, we'll discuss this briefly, and then we'll go ahead and take a lunch break. Any questions? One more thing. If you finish early, do me a favor, raise a green thumbs up so I know that you're finished, because if we can bring you in early, I'll do that. So I'll start the timer now, and I'll send you into your breakout groups.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. We'll do a quick discussion before we send you off for a 60-minute lunch. As you reviewed the procurement policies as they pertain to this SWIM program, was there any policy that jumped out as particularly pertinent to the SWIM program?
Yeah, this is Chuba. I thought that
OBM,
we as a group really,
Circular
it's
A76.
not just me, that the pre-release of documents was important.
Inherently
Since the
government,
vendor has to deal with
identifying inherently government.
Integrating them all together.
Okay, one at a time. Yeah, early information to get people online, especially because it's something relatively new. So you want them to sort of prepare and come up. Also, we benefit from their ideas through a pre-release. At the same time, somebody's saying OMB Circular A76, well, it always extremely pertinent because that sort of guides gives us the ethical guardrails that we need when undertaking a procurement policy. But two very good suggestions. What else?
Quality assurance.
Quality assurance? Yeah, boy, I'll say if all these systems within the FAA are communicating with each other, I would hope that they have display a very rigorous quality assurance program that makes sure that their tests and everything are adequate to ensure the reliability of the final deliverable. Also very important.
Mhm.
Anything else?
Clean scope of procurement.
Okay. Very clear. So we understand what they're doing versus what we're doing, especially when you're looking at, they want to use the system to integrate with all existing legacy FAA systems. So we have to make it very clear where that line of who's doing what is laid out in order for this entire project to be well integrated, so we don't have any communication hiccups, any performance hiccups, or any gaps in what's being done. All really good. Anything else? Here's what I wanted to say about that. Good insight, good information. You'll find as you go through the individual policies that every one of them are extremely important to some aspect of the program. There's very few things that you say, it doesn't apply to our program. All the policies in some degree can be considered very important to some aspect of a procurement effort. So they need to be taken as a whole. Very good effort. Hang on to this. And like I said before, I'm going to actually, at the end of this class in 2.5 more days, I'm going to ask somebody from your group to submit the Word document as part of your participation grade with all of this. So I want everybody in your group to copy what's in the breakout.
Are we already on break?
You're just about to be. You're just about to be. I hear you. I'm going to release you a break in about 30 seconds. So be sure and copy the information from your breakout session.
Okay, I just had on my screen saying the session will begin in 1 moment. Is that?
Oh, that's
that?
That's the breakout timer. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, that's the breakout timer. The breakout timer is the breakout session is completed. We're back in the main room.
Yeah, I see that. The instructor screen is spinning, so I'm wondering if we are all, as I recall, he mentioned something about like after this we go lunch. I don't know if we are already lunch. I hope
We're not already lunch.
Or
we're going to be
waiting on him, right?
You can't hear me, can you? Is your speaker on? It's not lunch yet. Okay, I'll finish this. Make sure you copy what's in the notes section of your breakout, paste it into your Word document so you have it on your computer. Each individual group member has it on their computer. And we'll come back from lunch and go on to the next section of procurement policy. And I'll see you in 60 minutes. During lunch, I'm going to place you back into the lobby and turn on a timer for 60 minutes. Any questions before I send you off? Thank you for that exercise. And we'll see you in 60 minutes.